And go.
48-hour art check, round 29. And yeah, we're still trying to figure out. See, normally when we do this, I push a button,
Uh,
and so I know it goes live. And so now we have to do this little thing where we have this little handoff, audio handoff.
I know this is why it starts off with a go, and then usually at this point we'd have like a button that we press, and then ching 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 ching.
Right. Yeah.
48-hour art check. You know, it'll make sense if you guys have been watching the series, but yeah, and usually this is on a really cool like split screen design that Cory designed, and so we're just kind of winging it because Cory is not at home right now. Do you want to explain for people who are just watching this for the first time, Cory, where are you doing your art check from?
I'm doing my art check from the living room of my aunt and uncle in Arizona because we are wrapping up, picking up our baby that we just adopted, and heading home. So normally I have like a studio, it's a dedicated space, and this is not that. So I have to like, I don't know. So we're doing this. I'm on my phone on a selfie stick that is attached to a thing on the ground. So that's kind of
And we're gonna kind of be winging it, and then obviously we're probably not gonna go too long because once again there's kind of a newborn in the equation here, so
yeah.
time is massively the value of time becomes really apparent when you have a kid, a newborn, and so and then you guys are also juggling too, so you have your kid and then you have this newborn, and so that's a lot. So let's dive into it.
Yeah.
We don't really usually do this at the top, but I think this might be good since we're getting towards like episode 30,
Mm-hmm.
and we're supposed to make the assumption when we're making videos that like, hey, this might be somebody's first time. So if it's your first time seeing this series, I just want to explain. 48-hour art check is a system that Cory and I kind of designed to sort of hold each other accountable to create our own personal creative projects. So what we do is we check in with each other every 48 hours throughout the week to see how our progress is coming along on our books. It's a way for us to create content for you guys out there in our community. And it's also a way for us to kind of make sure that we're holding ourselves kind of feet to the fire when it comes to making art and making our own personal projects actually happen. Because Cory and I, like when we were conceiving of this, we just realized like, hey, if we don't do something like this, like we might lose momentum or motivation. And so this kind of thing has been really advantageous, I think, for both of us to stay productive amid crazy busy lives. And once again, like, you know, Cory has a newborn right now, so this is a way for him to like even during that kind of hold himself accountable. Same here. Like we're both juggling day jobs and families, and so this is just another tool for us as artists to kind of stay productive and creative. So we encourage anybody who's new to this to also join in and create a little accountability group of their own for their own creating art. And you can do it 48 hours. You can do what Gaz and Mike and some other members of the community have done, and just join in and do it once a week. But we highly encourage it. It's been really helpful. So let's get in. So we basically just asked 3 questions, and we're going to dip into it. So uh, first question is basically, what did we plan on doing last time, and then what did we accomplish? So yeah. So how'd you do? What'd you get done?
Yeah. So my plans the last time we met were to do another pass on the writing for my children's book. I had finished the inks prior to this and blacked them out, and I began reading.
Oh no, I think that our internet connection is kind of slowing down. So let's see what we can do here. So far we've lost Cory. We might have to kind of reset our broadcast, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so we've lost Cory. I'm uh, suggesting that he logs off and logs back on because I think that might actually help with the stream and stuff like that. I guess in the meantime, just to kind of fill the time on the air, so there's not a lot of blank space. I'll just kind of get into what I've accomplished so far for art. Oh, are you there?
Sorry, I'm back.
No worries. Okay, I was about to fill the time jumping into my project, but luckily I don't have to. So we got Cory back. So Cory, so you were saying that last time your goal was to kind of work on polishing up the story part of your children's book. It's like a 40-page children's book that you've done all the illustrations for, but so far all the type is like a placeholder, and so you were going to kind of
I've done several treatments of the text, and with varying levels of detail. And I started being way too descriptive, and I was describing stuff that I had drawn, and so it was really redundant. And so this is more of the third or fourth pass through. And I think I'm getting a lot closer to where I want it to be. Probably the first 10 or so pages are like less than 12 words per page, just kind of really minimal, because the drawings, I worked really hard on having them tell the story.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so hard to cut so much dialogue out. And so, I've lived with these characters now for like 8 months. And so you kind of get to know them. And so, anyway, but yeah, I have all 40 pages with text that I would say is about 90% there. And I'm just going to run it by a few people. And I'm kind of at a limit of what I can do because I don't have access to any of the software that I normally do lettering in or anything. So I typed it all up on a PDF editor on my iPad. And I have like annotated notes on a PDF instead of like actual like lettering that I would do. And then I don't even know how to get it out of the program, because I was planning on sending it to you. I was planning on sending it to a couple other people, but it's like locked into this program. So I'm gonna have to hand type it, which is, it's not gonna take me that long, but I just can't do it here.
Yeah.
So I've actually physically reached the limit of what I can do on this project remotely, which is kind of cool.
That is pretty awesome, actually. So that's cool. Did you kind of figure out the tone you wanted to go with? Because I think last time you were sort of juggling between doing something that's a little lighthearted and almost like a self-aware author who's maybe a little tongue-in-cheek and possibly a little unreliable, or a straight narrator who's sort of. Did you kind of decide which way you wanted to go with that?
Yeah, and actually what I did is my 8-year-old and I, we kind of went on what is today? Yesterday, we went on a date for a couple hours and just kind of wandered around the mall and, got some frozen yogurt and stuff. But we spent some time in several bookstores, and she loves to read, and so she was freaking out about all the different things. And I read through a number of different versions of fairy tales, and then I went to a used bookstore that was super awesome, that had these books that were like hundreds of years old, and other books that are 50 and 60 years old and whatever. And I actually found not the book that I used as a source, but the same author. They're called the blue fairy book, or the yellow fairy book, or the green fairy book.
Got it.
I found the green and the blue one. I didn't find the violet one, which is where this one I think comes from. And I read through those, and those seemed a little stiff. and the other seemed a little too playful, and so I kind of ended up in the middle where it was a straight tell
Hmm.
with very little description. I intentionally eliminated almost all of the adjectives except for like three,
Yeah.
where I used those strategically, and I tried to get kind of like a rhythmic thing. So I can talk about this in struggles, but as I was typing this out, I had my newborn son who was super fussy, and so I used because I find writing to work better for me at least when you say it out loud.
Hmm.
I can feel a rhythm and hear a rhythm better than I can write a rhythm,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so that's when I would add or take away. And so I'm getting to the point now where I'm kind of working on a syllable level where I'm trying to figure out the correct number of syllables. Not that it's a poetry thing or anything, but sometimes a line just sounds better if there's an extra syllable
Yeah.
before or after a word.
There's a tempo to it. So
Yeah.
like even whenever I have to like write lyrics or write something that has like a cadence to it,
Mm-hmm.
I have all these stupid tricks. Like one of them's like I'll put my hand here
Yeah.
just
Dude,
just to
can
note the syllables, and I'll be like ba 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 ba, like
right.
counting my syllables. Um, yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of weird things like that. I've always been like that too, where I have to hear it audibly, and
Yeah.
so luckily, like my wife is okay with that. But like in graduate school, imagine, having to sit there and listen to somebody read you their thesis out loud,
Right.
and I'd have to do that more for me,
Yeah.
just kind of. And so it's a very, I'm sure it's not a fun experience for like my wife, who's like hearing me kind of, and maybe when it's just getting interesting, go, oh wait, I gotta like,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound right. Let's try this word.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I go through that process too with my graphic novel, where I have to read it out loud.
I
Um,
took a I took a test years ago on learning styles.
uh-huh.
There's like visual learning styles, whatever. I'm a hybrid learning style that tends to be an exceptionally difficult style for traditional classrooms. Um, but I've learned to like adapt it to work really well. But I'm an audio kinesthetic,
Hmm.
which means that I have to hear something while I'm manipulating something with my hands. And so that's why I used to doodle in class,
Mhm.
or I'm always fidgeting with my ring or my watch or whatever. It's also why I can play video games with the sound off while
Mhm.
I'm listening to somebody say something, or listen to a talk or a lecture, and that helps me process that information a lot better.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you're similar, because if you have to, one of the tells of somebody who's an audio learning style
Uh-huh.
is how you remember a telephone number. Visual will look at it, kinesthetic will write it, and audio will say it out loud so that you can hear it. So
Yeah.
if you say it out loud, then you can remember the sounds of the
Uh-huh.
numbers, and then you will hear your voice as you try to recall that. And so there's interesting things. So being an audio kinesthetic, I have to say it out loud while I write it down.
Yep.
So,
I think I'm the same way, and that's always been kind of the bane of my existence in leadership, because one of the things, you'll read this in like every intro to leadership book or every intro to teaching. It's like one of the key things is remembering people's names.
right.
And for me, a name is a really associative thing. So I like, until I really know someone, I don't tend to remember their name, and it's
Yep.
not like a terrible thing. I've tried all of the tricks. Like there's all these different sales tricks and stuff, because I used to have to work in sales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially like early in college, work at like a call center or something like that doing sales. And like the key thing is to remember the person's name so that you're
Yeah.
using their first name, because you get a better chance of getting a yes, which is a whole different thing. But it's like when you're in sales and you're contingent on these like commissions that are going to come. A lot of the way to get somebody to buy in at first is to get a yes. So it doesn't even matter technically what you're trying to get the yes for. You're just trying to get early compliance. It's a really good trick with leadership, and it's not like a dishonest thing. It's just a pretty straightforward, like, psychological thing. If you're willing to say yes to something, then you're much more likely to say yes to something that you may have been more hesitant to say yes to. It's why, like, those depression ads are like, do you have trouble sleeping? That kind of thing.
Yes, I do.
But anyhow, it's really hard to get a yes from someone if you don't use make it personal and use their name.
Right.
And so for me, that's just always been like a real struggle, because I have to, like, literally see the person, associate their character with them, and have written their name and have heard their name and have said their name.
Right.
And that's tough, because a lot of people just say the name like 5 times in that first meeting, and you'll remember it. And I won't. I could say it 20 times the first time I meet the person until I've written it down and said it. So yeah, I think we are very similar.
Yeah. And I do that. I do that a lot as well. With my students, it's very difficult because I have 75 to 125 new students every 4 months.
Yep.
And and I'm terrible with names. But I can. So often my colleagues will say, "Hey, do you remember so and so?" And I will know them very well, having had them in several classes, but I don't know their name.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
And I'll be like, and now they've gotten to the point where you're like, "Hey, do you remember so and so? They did this project."
Yeah.
And I know the work that they've done really well. So I'll always be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly who it is." And I do. I will remember their face and their backstory and every interaction that we've had together, but I can't, I don't know who Emily is versus who, somebody else is or whatever.
Yeah, which becomes problematic at a college level too, because it's like the assigned seating isn't really assigned seating, but I mean, like, psychologically, people still pick the same spot. But every once in a while, kids will switch, and it's like, if you still kind of have to take roll at a college, whether it's verbally or whatever, just for basically for obviously the school, so they know you're not like ripping them off and saying you have like a class full of 40 students and nobody shows up the whole year. But that becomes kind of, once again, that becomes just this extra struggle if that's your learning style, because, like, once again, you could know these people intimately, like know more about them than most of their teachers would, and yet still just be like, "Oh, hey, you,"
Yeah, right.
Yeah, great job, guy. Or like, I've come up with a million techniques to kind of make up for that. So okay, so yeah, so the plans, that's cool. That's awesome that you stuck to it and that you got that draft out. That does suck about kind of typing on a smartphone and having that issue. That does, I can see that being like, it's cool that you've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, this is probably all I'm going to be able to do for now. But that must also be slightly frustrating, where you're like, man, I'm probably looking forward to getting home, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I appreciate my studio a lot. It's totally set up.
Great.
So were you able to say what you did while I was disconnected, or?
No, I'm sorry. I was getting so into our conversation. Okay, so this is what I got done. I basically finished the page. So
cool.
That was the goal. I was pretty happy with that little cutaway of a playground at the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm excited about, like, tonight. Well, we'll get into goals and stuff like that, but I'm excited about this page. I'm excited about that last panel because I think it kind of makes the page a little more fun. And I'm thinking of adding some other kind of like interactive elements and stuff into the next upcoming pages. Because I remember the last time I did a sequence like this, I think I did like it was kind of like something I used that I saw in like an old E.C. Seeger Popeye cartoon, where it's like you cut out a face, and then as you and then there's like these little slits to like insert it in the figures, like the full body of a figure, and you kind of make it so that you can animate like the page. It's like a little paper craft thing that I did on the last chapter that was in this style, so chapter 2. So I want to implement something like that in every chapter that's doing this kind of naive style as like a throwback to old Sunday comics. And so I'm going to try to kind of implement that, I think, with some of the elements on the playground. So I'm thinking like maybe in the next few pages or something, having like a little activity sheet, but it's not really an activity sheet that somebody would have to actually do.
Yeah.
It's just a little addition that if they did would work, which is the key with that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's kind of that's what I got done.
I'm reading. I'm going back and reading a bunch of stuff on Comixology right now, and I was reading through. It's not Mockingjay. Now I'm gonna forget the. Anyway, it's a Marvel character.
Okay.
But yeah, they did kind of the paper dolls thing at the end of each issue. There's like a paper doll of her in the outfits that she wore.
Nice.
And the boyfriends that she was dating during that time and the outfits they wore. So it's kind of a cool throwback. This is just what I was thinking of while you were saying that. It is kind of like a fun thing. Like I'm reading it digitally, and I probably, even if I wouldn't like cut it out. But it was like a very memorable, cool, like, oh, that's awesome. I remember those when I was a kid. Like,
yeah.
Throwback nostalgia thing. That's cool.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, or maybe, this is something I've always wanted to do that I might be able to implement into either this chapter or another chapter that's kind of like in this style. But I also like this old Mad Magazine fold comics where it would say something and then you'd fold it and it would say something ridiculous. Like at first they'd be saying something ridiculous, you'd fold it and they'd be saying something like a punchline or a joke.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to toy with that idea, but tomorrow, well, anyhow, we can get into plans and stuff. So what's your struggle? I mean, obviously,
oh man,
take a wild guess and think probably time would be a huge one right now.
Yeah, well, that and it's just like energy. So for no reason, my wife stayed up with the baby 2 nights in a row and was getting up, and then I would like take over in the morning. Just because kind of that's what we did, but because we're adopting, like she's not nursing, so there's no reason that like I can't do that too.
Yeah.
And so I was getting up in the morning feeding and helping, and then so like on the other day, yesterday morning, I said, I stay up later than you anyway. I'll just stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I'll tag you out and I'll sleep in the morning and you can go to bed a little bit earlier. So we kind of like stagger sleeping since we're just, feeding, like either one of us can feed.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'll be able to get some stuff done because all day this kid's just asleep. I was so wrong. Oh my gosh. I went to bed at 5 in the morning. I didn't sit down almost the whole night because he just screamed every time I was sitting down or every time I set him down. And so like I had to be standing, bouncing him, and holding him for him not to be screaming. And then you just get loopy. And so I was like one hand typing this out. And so I haven't even gone back and looked at that pass. It could be terrible. I don't know. But
it could be a totally different story.
Right.
It's like some sci-fi novel over. It's funny. My son, like he just would not like breastfeed when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just wouldn't. And so we had to do like the powder, And by the way, pro tip for parents, like there's this Walgreens brand that's the same formula as like Enfamil, but it's like maybe like $15 cheaper, and it's literally the same ingredients. And pretty much like my sister's kid had the same issue, and so we had to do powder milk with her kid as well. And it's like kids like it, and it's literally like it saves a ton of money. So just a little pro tip. I remember like you have to like stock the fridge with like pre-mixed like milk and then you've got your milk warmer, and you've got all these things, and like you'd literally be juggling like milk things with one hand, and then so when you're even describing that, I'm just imagining like a bottle in one hand, and you trying to type like one-handed.
Yeah, well, the baby's like in the crook of your arm, and then all of a sudden, he's like super squirmy. It's not like he stays still. So like, I have like one hand on the iPad, the other hand holding the bottle, and he's kind of like wedged in like a football, and then all of a sudden he just decides to just like,
Yep.
And it's just like you drop the bottle so that you don't drop the baby, and it was just like that all night. And so then there seems like there was so much more to that story, but there's not. There's just nothing else that happened. So then the next day, I got up, I don't know, around 11 or something, and I'm just like hammered. And and we get the call to say that Arizona has authorized us to leave the state, which is great.
Oh, sweet.
And then a couple hours later, we get the call that says that Idaho has authorized us to enter the state. And so now we can leave. And so then on like whatever amount of sleep I got, which wasn't great because like I brought the baby into the room. So like I wasn't in charge from 5 a.m. to whenever, but like every time he woke up, it still woke me up. So anyway.
Which is frustrating because those little windows of sleep, you have to take them when you get them, and that's, oh man, yeah. It's funny. I really vividly remember it. It's like it's
like
a long time ago. But man, I mean, that's it's funny. Like I think it pretty much some new parent described this to me when I was in the thick of it. They were saying like, just take your marriage and put it in a sleep depth tank, and then that's pretty much like the first like 3 months of your kid's life is like you're both kind of crazy because you both haven't you won't sleep,
right.
And it is like that. Like you'll get this little window, and it's like then you're woken up, and like then you're frustrated because you're like, dude, this is my 5 minutes to sleep. Like I need 5 minutes. This is not the time to have like weird sleep issues, that's.
So then we have to figure out how to leave. And so I had extended the car rental, and I want to talk about this because this is during struggles. I'll be fast. Car rentals are stupid. I do not understand how they work. It doesn't make any sense. So I have this car rental, and I'm like in Mesa, Arizona. So I said, okay, if I extend this 2 days, how much is that going to be? Well, you've got a weekly rate, and so it'll be like an extra like $52. Great, let's do that. And then I said, okay, if I take this car and instead of dropping it off in Mesa, if I can drop it off in Vegas, then I could meet my dad who's driving up to Idaho, because that's where kind of Vegas is kind of the halfway point in between like him and I right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, that will be $500. And I'm like, it's like a $250 rental. Or is it $500 extra? They're like, yeah. It's like, okay, do I have any other options? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, this is stupid. So then I said, okay, what if I turn this car in and then I rent another car at the same time from Mesa to Vegas on the same day? Oh yeah, that will be $200. I'm like, so that would be another option, right? Yeah. Why didn't you think of that one, genius? And so, of course, I didn't say that, but I'm really tired, so I almost did. And then he's like, and I'm like, that still seems like a lot of money for like a 6-hour rental, just because I'm traveling to a different city. And so then I now know how much it costs to take a train, how much it costs to take a bus, how much it costs to fly from many, many different airports. Flying's like $800, and because there's 3 of us or 4 of us now. And then the bus is like $20 a head. And anyway, over and over, it was ridiculous. And then I thought, why haven't I checked other car rental sites? Why am I just going with the one that I've already? And so now I finally got to the point where I rented a car for $60.
Nice.
So anyway, so that was the majority of everything that's been going on. Is I'm tired and I'm trying to do math.
Yeah, and then just even that trip, like I'm trying to think about, because I'm like, man, that's tough with like a newborn in the car. Oh my gosh, just there's a lot of logistics to this whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to be driving 1,100 miles tomorrow.
Jeez.
So that's like 17 hours normally without a 5-day-old.
Oh man.
So it's probably going to take us a little while. So,
Jeez.
so those are the upcoming challenges.
Yeah. Well, current and upcoming. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great though. That's great news that you guys can head back. That's good. That's exciting. And it'll probably be a little easier to kind of juggle some of this stuff once you're in your own space and you have like your own space delegated for the kid and for the art and for I think that's going to be a huge improvement, but just getting there, I didn't even
Yeah.
think about that. That's a massive logistical
Because
headache right there.
because flying down here was $350 for all three of us.
Uh-huh.
Flying back was $800, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna spend that. I don't want one. I don't have that.
And
So,
you couldn't it's like you can't pre-book, like you couldn't pre-envision when everything would clear. So
no, because we didn't know when anything would
yeah.
happen. We could have been here for another 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
or been done on Tuesday. So
Jeez.
yeah. Anyway, it's all good. It's all in the past.
I,
But those are some struggles.
well, I can see it. I'm impressed that you got through a draft, and like the thing that's important with writing, and you're already aware of this, but for anybody who's watching this who's new to writing, it's like getting that junk writing out is good. So even if it was like a failed pass, which I probably think you probably got a lot of content in there that's not, but even if it is, it's still not really a failed pass because like it's like that junk writing has to get out to kind of get to the meat and the good stuff. So, all right, let's get into plans, and then like hopefully you can get a window to get some rest and and get that whole logistical thing worked out. So what are your plans? What are you?
It's before Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Friday today?
Today is Wednesday.
Oh. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything because I will be in the car. I might be able to do something Friday morning.
So the goal's mainly to get home at this point.
Yeah, I need to get my family home.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to start and finish a sticker. Also, my daughter and I have been working on some stories. She's gotten really into writing lately.
Love it.
And she's 8, but there's a book that she's reading or read recently, and it's like a full-on like YA novel that was written by a 10-year-old. And like I read it, and you can tell it was written by a 10-year-old, but it's actually not bad.
Oh, I think you might be palming the mic a little bit.
Sorry.
No worries. So it's a YA novel for what?
That was written by a 10-year-old.
Oh wow.
And she was like at the local Costco selling her book. She got it printed, and I don't know how many copies she sold, but we got a copy. It's not a bad book. Anyway, so Scarlett's gotten super excited, and she's been working on this book, but now she's running into like story problems where she has been just doing kind of the writing by the seat of her pants thing without plotting or whatever. And so I've been going through like story technique with her and like character development and things like that. So that's not my art, but I think I'm going to count that. We have scheduled a meeting, Scarlett and I, to continue to work on her story. She needs to figure out what her character's motivations are, what their fears are, what their desires are, and we have to come up with. We talked a lot about today for probably about an hour about like an inciting incident, because she's got like some events, but she doesn't have any reason for those events to occur. And so since we have about 17 hours in the car tomorrow, I think we'll get pretty far in her story and knock out some of that stuff.
That's awesome.
So I'm gonna call that my goal. I'm gonna do some dad work.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And that actually might end up being a really cool story because it's like when kids are, uh, you know, at that age where like creativity is like a little more boundless, like they can come
Yeah.
up with some pretty cool, really unique ideas. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, we started talking about like public domain and stuff because she was like, "Hey, I was reading these books where these people like drop their characters into existing fairy tales and it like messes everything up. And I wanted to do that, but I didn't want to copy their idea. And so what could I do? But I want it so that people be able to read it. And so we talked about like licensed characters versus public domain characters versus creating your own original characters. And so then it was like this whole big story about original characters. It's been a really interesting couple of days.
It's
So
awesome.
normally I'm at work. So it's just I don't know what happens to these thoughts during the day, but they don't usually happen after 6 p.m. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been kind of interesting that way. But yeah, it's been good. So I don't know. She's planning on we. So one of the things we're doing is we're going to research public domain magic users because she's really into like Harry Potter, and so I was talking to her about Morgan Le Fay and a lot of like the Welsh and Scottish wizards from history and myth, and she was toying with the idea of doing like some sort of pantheon school where we had like different gods from different pantheons and they have to go to some sort of academy together or something.
Nice.
So yeah.
That sounds rad, man.
Yeah.
Cool. My goal is so I'm gonna scan and clean up this page tonight, and then I'm hoping that the next day by the time we talk, I'm hoping I'll either be starting or have already completed the thumbnails. Because by Friday night, by like, um, and just to put that into context, it's like usually when my son's asleep is when I'm able to get work done. And
Mhm.
so, that's usually about 8 o'clock. So sometimes these art checks will come before. But anyhow, so that's my goal is to kind of have the next page like thumbnailed out and the rest for that done. And I don't think I really mentioned struggles, but the only struggles just kind of typical stuff like in we're in our rush season, which is a really long rush season, and I'm having to train a new employee during the rush season, and so that's kind of hectic. So like work just takes a ton out of me. So for me, the biggest struggle and reminder I have to keep with myself for myself is to like stay consistent with exercise so that I have the energy to um, to get that extra work done every single day on my own project. Um, and that's basically it. So it's definitely like once again, I think it's definitely a much easier struggle than a newborn, or a long trip to a different state. But I'm excited that you guys are going to get to head home, and stoked you're still making progress on that book. And I think that I'm also stoked to see the sticker stint and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do have to mention on air, like I'm still stoked about this whole and see this is a problem because I'm now reading the books. I want to say like Stormlight or Stormborn or I don't remember the series name because it's like there's so many different storm
Yeah.
elements used in it.
It's the Stormlight Archives.
Stormlight Archives. Okay, I was because I keep accidentally saying Stormborn Chronicles or something.
Right.
So the Stormlight Archives are great. I'm like in the latter half. All I can say is like four shard bearers scene already happened, and so which Cory and I have already mentioned. Like this book series is great, but it makes you sound like a super nerd when you're talking about it. Like seriously, there's a great scene with the wind runner, and so many cool things happen. And anyhow, but
Yeah.
needless to say, it's getting really good, and I'm stoked about having that series to kind of listen to because I always think you have to have something interesting. Because sometimes like creativity or creatively, you don't really feel like sitting down for the amount of time it's going to take to work on something.
Yeah.
There are some days where you're just like on point and you have that habit built and it's easy. And then there's days like for me tonight, I'm not looking forward to like even cleaning and scanning this page. But having a good book, it like makes you kind of forget that you're working, and it can actually incentivize you to kind of work a little longer because you're like, well, I'll actually work about an hour so I can get a little further on that plot.
Right. And
That's
sometimes
great.
and sometimes even if you have stuff that you're not looking forward to doing,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking forward to the book. So you're like, well, I'm gonna go scan a bunch of pages, which is like the worst.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, oh, but I get to listen to the book.
Yeah, that's the great thing about audiobooks or podcasts or even YouTube channels. It's like
Yeah.
great to kind of have this thing to kind of keep you occupied and almost trick yourself into forgetting that you're working. And so that's been a real like cool thing. I'm glad you turned me onto it because it's like I'm eager after this to kind of like when I'm working on this, listen to the next chunk of that story. So if you guys are out there and you want a good story, check that series out. It's really good. All right, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do it. So if you want to check out Josh's stuff, you can go to quarterlystories.com. That's on the bottom of the screen when he speaks. And that is also available on Tapas. And so that's kind of a mobile optimized reading experience for the comic. All the finished pages are up right now, so you can check those out. If you want to check out my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com. And I don't have the ability to put a lower third in right now, so that's CORYKERR, 4 letters in each one of those, no extra E's or I's or anything like that. CoryKerr.com, and then I've got all my social media links and everything there. We will be back next week to switching between my channel and Josh's channel. So if you're on Josh's channel right now, obviously, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. But we'll be, if you don't want to mess out on half of these, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I do have a number of people that are beginning to line up to do kind of a convention series talking about what it's like to table at Artist Alley. And so make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you want to see those. And one of those is up now if you want to look at me interviewing Scott Serkland, who is a guest at Phoenix Comic Con, has been doing this for a number of years. And go check out his channel because I do this really cheesy looking teleportation thing.
It is great. You guys got to check it out. So good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we will see you guys on Friday, which will be the last time I'll be on the road for a while. And then Monday we'll resume normal stuff.
All right, guys. And I do want to throw in here one last thing, which is if you guys are thinking about doing a thing like we're doing, what's your excuse for not doing it? Cory's got a newborn. He's got to drive 12 hours or 17 hours, whatever the amount of time, a long amount of time, and rent a car and do all this crazy stuff. And we're still managing to do an art check. So, if you're having thoughts about doing it, maybe that can be an impetus for you guys to just stop, the resistance and just do it, get it done. It's cool and it's feasible and it's possible. All right.
It's way easier and less time consuming than you think.
Agreed. All right. We will see you guys Friday. All right. Bye.
Okay. See ya.